I can still remember a day in my young life that changed the life and defined basically why I'm here today. I was just a teenager. I'm in school, and we are having geography, and the theme of this lesson is climate change. And Tom, our teacher back then, he tells us that the climate change and the melt-off can disturb the Gulf Stream that brings the warm water up to Scandinavia and the UK. And if that happens, well then ironically what we could see is that the cold Arctic climate could spread all the way down across Scandinavia. And that was kind of like a what moment for my young brain, kind of thinking, is this the magnitude of the experiment that we are running? So I became equally curious and like, I need to know more about this. So I've been working with sustainability ever since. And for many, many years, up through university, I was pretty sure and also learned there that regulation and governments held the key to the changes that we want to see. But then came COP15 in Copenhagen. Today, widely recognized as the worst COP of them all, which is a bit of an achievement. So this is what Paris in 2015 was supposed to be. That was supposed to happen in 2009. So I was there. It's first row, as I lived in Copenhagen, and I can only describe it as watching a car crash in slow motion. Because you could just see, oh no, this is going to go terribly bad, and you just see how the disaster unfolds. So everything I've came to believe was kind of torn apart right in front of me. So there I was, thinking everything I've learned, it didn't work. Where do you go from there? But out of that came the realization that it's business that holds the keys to making the changes that we want to see. So I've been doing that ever since, and that's why I have the company Business with Impact today. It is to help business leaders like you figure out how do you, in your specific setting, find a way to make a really great business that make a massive impact on the world. So I've been working with more than 100 companies. I've been presenting to well beyond 10,000 people on conferences like this, working with all types of companies, from global players to startups, governments, regionals, cities, basically everything, because it's been so long, and it was way before it was meaningful to niche into anything. So also, if you have any questions, please feel free to take them anywhere, because I might have been in that corner as well. And what I would like to talk with you about today is really a change of perspective and understanding of sustainability in a business context in a way that will make you capable of going home and start making changes that will make sustainability move from a cost center to a profit driver. So, would that be interesting? Yes? All right, we should get to work then, shouldn't we? So, quick show of hands. How many of you find that this statement is true? Climate change is a problem that we need to fix, and we businesses need to do something as well. How many agree on that? All right. Yes. And this one, a sustainable product costs more. How many agree on that one? All right. All right. So something like most of you, but not all. There is a group over here that disagree strongly. I like that. Nice. Okay. We'll get back to that in a second, but let me just take one step back, because what is all this about? What's this? Where are we in the world right now? And what's going on in this place in time. So I created this image here to signal the significance of what's going on right now. So imagine that you, as a company, are either sort of in the old way of doing business or in the new way of doing business, right? And if you're in the old way of doing business, then no matter how fit you are, how good a coach you have, how amazing your equipment is, how much you optimize, when you're out there moving from A to B, when somebody passes you on a bike, you have no chance of keeping up. So that's the magnitude of the green transition, right? So companies that are moving on this, that are becoming part of solution to some of these massive problems that we brought upon ourselves, they are on this type of bike and equipment. So if this is you, and you're competing against these, of moving fastest into the future, who's gonna win, right? So just to position, that's how I see the magnitude of what's going on. So last year, I wrote a book called Making Sustainability Profitable, and it's really a do-it-yourself thing, where a lot of what I've been talking about today, you can find here. I brought a handful or so of them, so if some of you feel like, hey, that sounds really, really interesting, come find me afterwards and you can get a copy. But one of the things that I realized and created when writing that book is this graph that I just want to share with you. I call it the impact curve. And the sad truth behind all of this is that the majority of businesses today have a very low or even negative return on investment on the type of money they throw into sustainability. And likewise, they have a fairly low impact as well. So I plotted this graph, and there's no data set behind it. This is experience-based, right? But the thing is that most businesses are here in what I call they are lost in the wilderness. So companies that are here, characterized by having a sustainability strategy and a business strategy. We have a pretty clear detachment between these two. Typically, we'll have a leadership team that can say all the fancy words, but apart from that, not really engaged. It's not their business, right? It's not their area of expertise. It's not their responsibility. There is a sustainability manager or whatever it's kind of title the person have. We can even find companies here that have environmental management systems, because then we have a systemized way of working with sustainability detached from the core strategy, right? So we still have the important stuff, the core business strategy, and then we have all the rest, amongst others, sustainability. They might even throw a lot of resources into it, but you see very little return. You might think, perhaps this is me, or perhaps this is not me at all, but do reflect on where do you see yourself on this graph. Then we have the sweet spot here, which is the far more interesting point, because this is where companies, if you look at them, then right away you will think, well, they are part of the solution. Whereas the ones you will find here, you probably think, well, they're contributing to the problems that we have. Right? So these are the companies where you think, they are part of creating a solution to some of the problems we have here. Sustainability is an integrated part of the strategy, so we don't have this detachment. This is where companies are utilizing this whole approach to create the way they do business. So this also means that this is a strategic agenda. It's probably owned somewhere or anchored somewhere at the very top, so we don't have this detachment. Just to be very brief about the two others, because they're not so relevant for this conversation right now, but far to the right, we have the, you are right. We have the green unicorns, and they're by no means as wide as we see it here. It should be a very, very, very thin slice. But these are sort of the global front runners. These are the ones that get invited to the biggest stages, United Nations, your your governments if they want to ask advice for businesses and so on. But getting there is extremely more complicated than being around here, which is also why I call it a chasm, right? So it takes a lot of effort. So let's not focus too much on that. The important thing is that you can move from around here to here without doing a lot more than what you do today, but by doing something very different from what you do today. So, please, attention for a second here. Whatever you do now, do not think of a pink elephant. And how many of you now have an image of a pink elephant on your brain, right? Just about all of us, right? Including me. And I've even said this 1,000 times, but still I get the image, right? Because that's how the brain works, for good and bad. So, the thing is, what do you think happened when you constantly hear and repeat to yourself that sustainability is a costly thing, it's a problem, it's hard work, it's really difficult to get any business out of this? Well, then that's how your brain starts to perceive this. So your whole focus and the way you're entering this work on sustainability is going to be embedded in a thinking that this task is costly, it's not good for business, it's a problem I need to fix, and it's hard work. And of course, if you enter anything with that experience, imagine you want to train to run a 10K race, and you consistently every morning get up and think, this is going to be really, really hard, and it's not going to lead to anything good for me. And what are the odds that you're ever going to succeed on that, right? So there is this notion, this whole set, and I call them the fatal five. 5 things in our mindset and our approach that radically hinders us and at least make it a lot harder to succeed on this whole transformation agenda. So, let me walk you through all of these 5, because I also created the corresponding 5 to Thrive. So it's basically trying to move you from this pillar to this pillar over the next sort of little half an hour. Okay? So, the first one. People work with this, with the notion that it's about sustainability. And you might say, well, Jasper, if sustainability is not about sustainability, it doesn't make sense. What are you saying? But the thing is that you can use this, and it doesn't really matter if you're thinking sustainability or climate change or circular economy or ESG or SDG or whatever is your thing back home, but you can use that to create a lot of business value. So areas like cutting cost, increasing sales, attracting talent, increasing productivity, increasing innovation, increasing customer loyalty. These are examples of value that we see again and again for businesses that seriously engage in this. So not the ones from the graph that are over here, right? And do small things on the side, but those who actually try to engage it in the way they do business. So start and end with business. Think about what are the key business issues that you are facing right now, and figure out how could you, through sustainability, solve those problems. Because if you do that, then every step you take is inherently going to be valuable on its own. And then it will also have a beneficial impact on the world. So it's a major shift if you're starting from what's the biggest impact I can try to solve, or if it's like, what's the biggest business problem I could try to solve? And the trick here is that the implementation power lies in solving business problems. Because if you connect this and can go and say, okay, now I found a way where we can contribute to solving one of our absolutely biggest problems, well, then there's already resources allocated. There's already mental broadband available for that. Whereas if it's like, I know we're busy on all this stuff, but I have this thing over here we also need to do something about, it becomes a nice to have. And you know what? It sucks to be nice to have. Whereas it's really great to be need to have. Because that's what's going to be your entrance and ticket to really get influence in the organization and to be able to direct initiatives. So that's the first one. The second one, this whole agenda is all about reduce, avoid, stop doing, guilt, we should do less of. Recognize this? Or is it just where I live? Yeah, I figured it wasn't. And the weird thing here, or actually the troublesome thing here is, the way we do talk about this makes it a lot harder for us to succeed. And here's the reason why. Because when we talk about reduce, avoid, stop, letting go of, our reptile brain goes into defense mode and said, no. Right? This is why scarcity works. It's why if you're shopping for something on a website, it will come and tell you, oh, only 3 pairs left. Buy now, otherwise it's gone. Right? The second we're about to lose something either we think we have, or that we know we have, the brain says, no, don't. Because not so long ago, it could mean you go hungry to bed. So our brain, the reptile brain, which is the one that's running the show, is hardwired to hold on to anything that somebody's about to take away from us. So every time we say it's about reduce with X%, it's about having to stop doing, it's cutting down on, then even people like you who actually have an interest in this subject, you will still have a small battle in your brain where the reptile says, no. And then the more mature brain comes in and says, well, yes, let's do this. It's meaningful, right? Or do the translation to figure out that it's actually a good idea to let go of all this, or whatever it is. So you got to shift and reframe this from avoid, stop, minimize, let go of, to create new and better. And it can be exactly the same exercise, right? Let's just say I have, could be this one, and we say we want to minimize the energy consumption here. We want to cut it by 20%. So it has 20% less energy use, or probably the monitor, or this one is a better example. So we want to reduce the carbon emissions from this in operation with 20%. Or we could say we want to create a newer, better version that's 20% more energy efficient. It's exactly the same exercise, but one clicks the scarcity button, and the other one starts up in the new brain, where creativity and imagination is, because I need to create something, which means I start to imagine what would that look like? How could I possibly get there? So we are starting 2 different places in our brain, but one says stop, don't, and the other says yes, let's find a way. Radically different, and it also means a beautiful alignment in language, because business leaders get up in the morning thinking something like, I want to create more of something. More sales, more products, more jobs, more whatever. Sustainability people get up in the morning thinking, I want to make sure today that if today is a good day, we'll do less of this. Less carbon emissions, less waste, less whatever. And then you wonder that these 2 people, groups of people, look at each other and think like, we are not on the same page, right? So the second you reframe this to about creating something new and better, then all of a sudden you get an alignment. We're both about creating more of something, Now it becomes a discussion of what is it that we want to create more of. But we become aligned in language, and it makes it so much easier to get the entire C-suite and everybody involved to see that this is meaningful, because all of a sudden they connect to it. All right, third one, green products cost more. This is a classic one. And I know most of you right now is thinking, okay, he's completely lost it. Because this, how could you possibly even say this? I went shopping yesterday. It was pretty clear every organic version was so much more expensive, or whatever it is you did, right? So our reference point is that sustainability is always more expensive. But yet, just before I told you we could cut costs, we could increase sales, we could do so much stuff with this. So why is it that we insist that it should be more costly? There are endless examples of companies that have saved money through sustainability projects. And yet, we keep saying it's more costly. Strange, isn't it? And the thing is, if you set out to do a quote-unquote green version of whatever product you have, and you say to yourself or to the team that you're working with, it's probably going to be 10% more costly. I can guarantee you, you will be right. The brain is by far the most energy-intensive part of the entire body. So we do whatever we can to minimize the use of it. Right? So if the challenge just is to find a solution, and it's okay that it's 10% more costly, that's what you're going to get. But if you define it and say, well, obviously we want something that are cost competitive or cheaper, or at least where the value to price ratio is better than today, well, then you create a bigger innovation task, but you also create another kind of solution. So don't fall for that, saying it's just going to be more costly, because you make it all so much more difficult when you take it to the marketplace. Fourth one, don't mess with the core business. For so many years, I talked to business leaders that's kind of like, we can't mess with the core, it's too risky, right? The thing is, if you don't mess with the core business today, that's where the risk lies, right? So say your core product is the same, and now you have sustainable packaging. Well, customers are increasingly looking at you and thinking, well, good for you, sunshine, but your core product is still a problem. Well, how could you say that it's amazing that this, it's like taking a hugely energy-intensive chemical monster of a product and wrap it in a thin layer of reusable plastic and say, ta-da! Now I have a great product for you, right? People look through this. So you have to start thinking and understanding that this is a way of thinking and doing and developing and running your business. It's too risky to stay here, and it's too hard to connect all of this if you insist that it's just a project on the side. So the last one, keep it to yourself, right? In many businesses, probably not any of yours in here, but trust me, there are companies out there where it's just a few people in the organization that are actually working with sustainability. And they tend to sort of be holding the cards fairly close to themselves. They're not going out telling a lot about this, either because they're afraid of accuses of greenwashing, or they think somebody will steal this magnificent idea we have. That's really the old way of thinking. It doesn't work. Sustainability is a team sport. We also just talked about it needs to be a way of doing. So how many other core functions do you have in your business so that's just a few people that are dealing with it? Obviously, it has to be something that's embedded a lot of places. And by being open and transparent and collaborative, you do two very important things there as well. One is you gain credibility. So whenever you go out and say something, if you're actually open and transparent about where you are, what you've done, where you want to go, you gain a tremendous amount of credibility in your statement. And the other thing is that this is really the fast track. Because whatever you are trying to solve, whatever problem you have, I can guarantee you somewhere on the globe, somebody has already been there, right? We tend to have this picture in our head that I'm probably the only one in this world with this problem. But we're not. We are not. Right? So if you start to signpost a bit, hey, this is where I am, I'm trying to get here, I can't figure it out. That's the fast track, because then somebody can see it and say, well, I've solved that problem. I could come work for you, or I could sell you this product, or we could partner, or whatever it is. So if you want to move fast, forget about this. Go here. So let's just recap for a second. Imagine we have two companies competing for the same clients with the same product in the same market. One of them are living and breathing the fatal 5, and the other one the 5 to thrive. Right? So on one side, we have a company that has sustainability projects of some sort, makes the product slightly more expensive. It's clear that it's kind of like a one-off, or at least project based by base. It's about minimizing and less bad, a bit of a sorry I'm here approach. And it's really hard to understand what are they actually doing. And on the other side, the other team, you have a company that comes out with products that are smarter and better and solve problems, meaning they could be cheaper or at least a better fit for the market. It's really clear that they are creating a positive impact on the world, that they are on a mission to something bigger than themselves. And it's not just a project, this is how they do, and you can clearly see where they're at. Who do you think has the easiest time attracting clients, partners, and talent? That's why these people win, right? I mean, when you get this really well working, it's kind of like, how could you not win? Huh? If you get the best team of people with the highest level of motivation because they are part of something meaningful, with new ways of looking at stuff that can create and innovate and find new solutions, and you have increasing loyalty among your customers, and your brand is growing, the value of the stories you have of traveling, you're being invited to speaking on stages and so on, how could you possibly not win? You almost got to sabotage your company if you live by this and can't beat these. And that's why, back to the picture in the beginning about the runner and the biker, right? It's two different sports, two different games, but they're competing in the same arena. All right, those were a ton of words. I could sum it up in one sentence. Would that be nice? Okay. Create business with embedded environmental impact. That's it. Right? That could be a small test in your head. Whenever somebody comes with an idea, okay, does this generate business value? And does it generate impact? If not, let's rethink. Let's challenge it a bit. What could we do? What would it take for this idea to have both business value and environmental value, or sustainability in one form, social, whatever is your game? Okay, so over to you. Do you recognize this? Do you recognize yourself in this? And what is biggest takeaways or questions? Let's have just a short, there's room for a couple. Is anybody brave enough to say something here? Yes, you are brave. Amazing. There's a mic coming your way. That might make it easier. But it's not on. 1 second. Yes.
Hello. Thank you very much. My question is how net zero goes into the whole picture of what you're
Yes.
explaining.
Great. Thank you. Lovely. I need to go back for this one then, because here, the second one, very often net zero is the ultimate, right? For the most ambitious, they're kind of like, we're aiming for zero. But again, try to look at that in a business context. How much energy is there in zero? Zero. How many work in a company where it's like, if we could reach zero this year, it's going to be amazing. Everybody get a bonus. I don't think so, right? So again, obviously, it's better, way better, to go for a zero emission than minus 70% or whatever. But again, if we look at the bigger picture, which is another reason why it says positive impact, we don't need zero. We need to move beyond, right? We're at a place in time, let's just take climate to make it really simple. If we imagine all carbon emissions stopped today, or at least we were back to pre-industrial level, it's not like we're in safe space, everything is well. We've emitted so much that we need to get into a positive territory where we actually take carbon out of the atmosphere and back into the soil somehow, or to other elements, trees, whatever. Because we are sort of, we're so much behind that it's not a matter of reducing or avoiding or getting to zero. We actually have to get to a place where we re-establish future generations' ability to meet their needs. So that's another reason why, don't go for negative, don't go for zero. Aim for positive. And it also flips your thinking radically, right? Because if you're familiar with the moonshot innovation thinking from Google, right? It's not 10%, it's like 10x. Kind of like the same that happens here. So if you have a product and say, okay, I'm just going to take these small steps, then you're looking for tweaks. But the second you say, well, this should have a positive impact somehow, you kind of redefine the entire potential solution. It's like, okay, we have to do, it's not about tweaking over here. It's really about going back and thinking, what's the core value we're delivering? What's the problem we are solving? How could we solve that in a way that has a positive impact? Right, so this is why this is really, really a powerful tool for innovation as well, because you completely reframe the entire exercise. Make sense? Great. All right. Now I want to make you have a small exercise, probably just in your head. Or if you have something to draw on, by all means, do that. But imagine a diagram like this, and you self-assess yourself on these fatal 5, right? So this one will be the first. We have them here. I'll come back to show them in a second. So each of these represent one of the 5. If you feel like, I am very close to the fatal 5, then you score yourself around 0. If you feel like, no, I'm on the 5 to thrive part, then you put yourself up here. Right? So just in your head, very quickly, I'll give you 30 seconds, imagine what would a diagram look like in your brain. Right? Starting to get a picture? Yeah? Just do it quickly. 1 to 5. Where am I? This is a 2, this is a 5, this is a 3. Okay, so you get an idea? Now imagine these were the wheels on your car. What kind of ride are you up for? Is it a very bumpy ride? Or is it going to be a very steady ride? And now let's imagine that you ask everybody in the leadership team of your company to do the same exercise, and each represent a wheel on the bus. What kind of ride are you offering the employees? Or the customers if they choose to step on your bus? My guess is it's going to be a somewhat bumpy ride, and it's really, really, really going to be hard to move anything above 5K an hour if people have to be thrown around. Right? So the task for you is to go home and get, as round as a wheel as you possibly can, but also as big a wheel as you possibly can. Because you obviously know that if you move one round with a very small wheel, you get a very short distance. If you move one round with a very big wheel, you get a lot further, right? And we need a lot of progress. All right, so this is Sanne, a client that I've been working with on the mindset part, and one of the things that she says is that it's so hard to really get this. I thought I had it, and then it turns out, next day, damn it, I was back where I started, right? And I'm just saying this because you spend your entire life practicing and training and hammering in the Fatal Five, because that's how the entire world talks about this. So don't be too hard on yourself if you feel like right now thinking, this is brilliant, this is how I'm going to do. And then tomorrow you feel like you're starting to sneak back in some of what's left, right? And that's also the reason why I've created a 30-day program. And if you feel like this might be interesting, at the end I'll just show you. You can join a wait list if you want more information about it when it's ready. But more about that at the very end in a minute or two. I just want to tell you that this is part of the, I call this the impact blueprint, right? Because now we talked a lot mostly about the mindset, but there are other elements. But if you want to move sustainability from a cost center in your business to a profit driver, this is basically the steps. And this is the model, as I said, that's in the book, right? And there are, as I said, I had threw a handful in the bag when I left, so feel free to come and grab it if you think this is me. I'm going to read this book and try to do something about it. But let me just add a very few words here towards the end on each of these steps, just to give an idea about what's underneath them, right? So here, the mission part here is really about what focus do we have, where do you want to go, what kind of contribution are you looking to make in the world. You are most likely in a business that have a mission, vision, purpose statement of some form. And if you are like the vast majority, it will be something like, we want to be the best, our product is the fastest, cheapest, smartest, most beautiful, whatever, blah, 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 blah. It's all about you. What we want to do here is elevate your game and find out how do we want to make an impact on the world? It's that sort of North Star part about where we want to go. So that's really what we do here, find out what's the right thing. And then mapping part is figuring out, then how do I get there? What are meaningful steps we can have? Right? And this is where we connect it to what's the 5 biggest problems you are facing today. Top 5 business problems, and the top 5 problems that your ideal client have. And then we figure out how can we solve or contribute to solving some of those. Right? So it means you will end up with a roadmap full of steps that are solving meaningful existing business problems while also moving you towards this target. Right? Here we start about implementation. So this is all steps for making it easy and simple to start implementing. Have you done this part right? Then this becomes, well, perhaps not easy, but easy to prioritize because it's all full of very, very good stuff. And the final part is magnifying. This is go out sharing the story, inspiring others, and also, of course, attracting information and attention to you. So I call this the learning phase. And this, for many of you, will think this is the interesting part. This is the earning phase, right? So, before I told you something about mission and vision and where you want to go, I've been talking a lot, and perhaps it's fair that I share why do I get up in the morning. So I get up in the morning to get business on the right side of history. That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. That's my ultimate bottom line for everything I do. As I said, if you feel like that this mindset thing has been really interesting and it might be great to actually own this, then I would like you to join a wait list for a program that I'm creating. And then there's no obligations, obviously. But if you do it, then I'll reach out to you soon and tell you a bit about the details. I guarantee you a 10x return on the investment. That's how powerful this is. So if you think this could be relevant, then it's really about scanning the code, click join the waitlist. There's a bit of a bonus for you there as well. You get a copy of the book. And then I'll reach out to you soon, and once you're ready, and I'll tell you all the details. You also, for everybody on the waitlist, there's also a special discount. So if this is your thing, then just scan this one, and you can go in and look at the website.